If you have an existing drawing that you really like and you want to either expand on it or make a variation of it, I'm going to show you how to do that. I really liked this bubble tea bear that I created, and I wanted to create another version, so I decided to create a frog version. If you want to follow along and sample colors, I will leave a screenshot right here so you can take a screenshot yourself and follow along. Okay, so I pulled up my bubble tea bear image for reference, and I'm actually going to trace over the main cup and lid because everything is pretty much going to be the same except the top and the face and colors are going to change. So I'm just going to start out by sketching to get a rough idea of where I want the face to be. For the frog's eyes, I want them to be a little bit bigger and higher than the bear's ears, so I'm not going to trace those over exactly. However, everything else I pretty much want to be the same, such as the straw, the lid, etc. If you have a favorite bubble tea flavor, let me know in the comments below, and if you have an animal that you think we should do next. Whenever you create something as an artist, you essentially have the right to copy it or make variations of it to whatever extent you like. So that is why I love doing this, because it saves a lot of time if I am in a pinch and I want to make some extra sticker designs or something like that. Copying, not exactly, but creating variations of the same design really saves a lot of time in the long run. Okay, now that we have our sketch, I'm just going to keep the bear on low opacity, and I'm going to come over to my calligraphy brushes. These are mono weight brushes, so that way the line width stays the same regardless of the pressure I use. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to set it to drawing assist. Make sure that symmetry is on. I'm going to select the color that we have going for the frog line, and I'm actually going to thicken up these lines a little bit. And I'm just going to trace right over my old lines. As you can see, I'm constantly flipping the canvas around, and this is a great way to get the exact angle that you need. And I'm just going to come up here. Sometimes I have to either go back or erase, because since I have mirror on or drawing symmetry on, sometimes the lines overlap, so you can just go back and clean those up. It's no big deal. Never be afraid to make mistakes. As you can see, I'm constantly going back over my lines, erasing, editing, redoing, etc. One of the great and forgiving things about digital. I love just dragging and dropping my color into a closed shape. It saves a lot of time if you need to fill up an area, especially if it's a large area. Almost done. Next we are just going to finish up the lid. To make sure that these lines are completed first. Now I don't want drawing assist to be on for all of the lines, and I will show you what I mean in just a second. I'm going to turn drawing assist off. Now I'm going to freehand the rest of the lines, well, still tracing, but I don't want them to be symmetrical on each side, because as you can see right here, this is not a symmetrical design, so we want to turn off the drawing assist and draw it in ourselves. Color in the delicious bubbles. What is your favorite bubble flavor. I really love the rainbow bubbles because they're nice and light, and I do enjoy the tapioca bubbles as well. They just are kind of heavy for me. So comment below what your favorite bubble flavor is. They have all kinds, and I know they also have jelly too. Sweet, so now that we are done with the lines, I am going to turn off our bear reference since you don't need it anymore, and I'm going to start filling in the different layers with color. So we're going to create a layer underneath our line, and let's start with the back of the cup. So I'm going to pick the light color, switch my pen to Studio Pen, and I'm just going to, I know it's hard to see because it's very light, but I'm just going to draw in following the edges because, like I mentioned before, as long as you have a closed shape, you can just drag and drop your color into that shape. And then in Procreate, it usually leaves a little white line going around your edges, so you just have to go back in and clean that up manually, but it's not a big deal. Next, you're going to sample colors for the actual tea. So we're going to make a layer above our cup layer, and again, go around the outside edges, and then we'll drag and drop to fill it in. Now I know when you are starting out, it can be very intimidating if you're looking at a picture from another artist and wondering, oh my goodness, there's so many different colors and layers happening. How in the world did they achieve that? I'm going to do my best to show you my process. My art is pretty just kawaii and simplistic. However, I'm going to show you the steps that I take to create depth in my layers and incorporate shading, lighting, all of that. For example, with the tea color, I wanted to create a variation, so I used 3 different shades of green. All I did was select this dark green, and then I went up a couple shades, so just brighten the color a little bit, and the same thing with the layer above. Just used a little bit brighter version of the current green, so it adds this nice kind of layered gradient effect. And then I wanted the top part of the tea to be a darker green. Now we're going to create another layer and move on to the lid. For this one, I chose another green color. As you can see, most of this design is green, just different shades of green. However, I did want to add in some color variation, which is why I paired it with the orange straw and also added some orange cheeks to just break up all of that green color. Now moving on to the straw, going to create a layer actually underneath our lid because the straw goes behind the lid. That way it's just easier for us to block in the color without worrying about coloring over our lid. Almost everything is blocked in. We just need to color sample the bubbles. Make sure when you color sample for this blocking in stage, you choose the middle tone color, which means the part of the piece that is not in light or shadow. Awesome, so now that we have all the colors blocked in, we have everything ready to start adding in our details. So let's put in the dots on the frog. I'm going to create a new layer and hit clipping mask over the lid. That way, whenever we fill in color, as you can see, it only stays within the layer we have underneath that clipping mask. Now I used the lasso tool to create an oval shape for his belly color, and then I'm just going to freehand the rest of the little dots on his face. Now I do want to turn back on drawing assist for his cheeks, just because I want the cheeks to be the same size and same placement on both sides. So I'm just going to block that in. And I feel like the cheeks are a little bit too big, so I'm just going to double tap to undo, and we're just going to try that again. Make them a little bit smaller than we did last time. And I think I'm going to actually move them down a little bit. So I'm going to use my lasso tool to select, make sure it's freehand, and move them down just a little bit. I like that better. So just remember, you can always go back and edit things. There is no such thing as needing to get it right the first time. Alright, so now I'm going to block in the little dots in his eyes. I usually just do a big dot on the top and then a smaller dot on the bottom for really simple kawaii eyes. And we did this on a layer over the line layer. Cute. Now we are going to move on to coloring in our lines. So we're going to click on our line layer, create a layer above it, and create another clipping mask. That way we can block in the color and it'll only show up where we want it, which is over our lines. Just going to erase out and clean up the edges. Come back down to the bottom part of the straw. Now, you don't have to color in your lines, but I just like the way that it looks. Okay, we're going to create a new layer. Again, another clipping mask. So these are all attached to the line layer. I'm going to move that under the straw. And we're just going to block in the line color for the teeth. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the shading. So I created another layer over all the layers on our lid, for our lid, and then I created another clipping mask and set it to multiply. And I just selected a green, same green as his head, I believe, and just lower the opacity to where you feel like that's a good shading color. I didn't want it to be too dark, just like a nice soft shading color. Yeah, I like that. And then since we had a lot of different colors on our lid and I wanted them all to be shaded in the same way, we used multiply, but you don't have to use multiply if it's just going to be on one color, for example, like the cup. So all I did was I selected a darker version of the cup itself, a darker color, and I'm just going to block in some shading on the right side. Now with shading, you want to make sure that it is consistent in terms of the direction that it's coming from. I am imagining the light coming from the upper left-hand corner of my image, therefore it is going to be lighter on the left side and darker on the right side where the shadow will be. Now I'm actually going to create a clipping mask attaching our bubbles to our tea, and then creating another clipping mask which will be our shading layer. That way the bubbles get shaded as well as the tea. Again, I feel like that's a little bit dark, so I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit, and again I chose the middle green of the tea color to be the shadow color. Nice. Alright, and from here we can move on to the lighting. So for the straw lighting, it is just a lighter version of the straw color itself, and I'm going to just create a simple line to indicate the light. Again, remembering light is coming from the left side, so the lighting colors will be on the left. Now you can create this on a new layer, or you can create the lighting on your layer, it doesn't matter. But for the frog lid, I'm going to create it on a new layer because I'm just going to block it in and lower the opacity a little bit so it's not quite as bright. And same thing for the cup. I'm going to create a lighter version of the color. And as you can see, it's actually going behind the T, whereas in my reference I had it going over the T. So we're just going to drag our lighting layer up above to make sure it's above our T layer. Now it's overlapping, and then we can lower the opacity. And there, you have a nice lighting. Little nice lighting line. We're going to add the lighting onto our bubbles. I'm just going to come right... should we add it? Yeah, we'll add it above, just to be safe. I'm going to switch to my studio pen brush just so I have a little bit more control over the width, just because these bubbles are different sizes, so it's easier to block in the light when you can adjust your brush width. Now we actually forgot to add in the shading on our bubbles, so we're going to go back in and do that. I'm just going to sample the shading color, and we'll go ahead and alpha lock the bubbles, and we'll just color the shading right onto the bubbles, making sure that it's on the bottom right side. Again, this is just a darker green than the green of the actual bubbles. And there we go. Last little step are adding the sparkles. I'm going to add them under the multiply layer for our T. I just like adding in these little dots, not too many, just to kind of indicate like the T is all sparkly, which I know it's not in real life, but hey, you can do whatever you want as an artist. Super cute. So there is our bubble tea frog. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to check out my other tutorials and like and follow.